Hello, car lovers, and welcome to the CNC Auto Show, and I am Aaron Clutch.
I'm John Ryan.
And we are both here to give you information on ways to make your car, truck, or SUV safer, to make it more dependable, and to make it last longer for less money and less hassle. And our team would also like to say thank you to all of you that ride with us on the CNC Auto Show. We really do appreciate you allowing us to be a part of your weekend, and it really means a lot to our team. And we are here to take your phone calls, and that number is 706-863-5800. That's Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10 Eastern Time. And at that time, you can catch us live on air or iHeartRadio or WGAC 95.1 FM. And you can also watch us live on Facebook. That's at CNC Auto Show. And you can ask a question there also if you'd like to do that. If you are looking for a good, dependable auto repair facility, ask no more. You just go to NapaAutoCare.com and hit that little search bar in the right top corner, and you'll find a list of some of the best auto repair facilities in the country. That's NapaAutoCare.com. And John Ryan, are we ready to roll?
Yeah, I think we are. Let's go over to Ron this
I
morning.
think that's perfect. Ron, welcome to the CNC Auto Show. We appreciate the call, and what can we help with?
Just a couple of comments, fellas. I couldn't stop thinking about little Susie for getting her lunch, and the bad and the awful message that you send to a child just simple economics alone.
Uh-huh.
If you was to put 5 single dollar bills in their backpack or in their little coin purse,
mm-hmm.
and tell them about emergency fund, and this is only to be used in an emergency, and the idea of spending $30 to $40 to replace a $3 lunch,
Uh-huh.
it just goes beyond any reasonable. It's no wonder these kids grow up thinking that money grows on trees.
Well, it was her books her books and all of her assignments and all that she had that she left. But, you know, Ron, one thing that really surprised me a huge amount, and I did run an experiment on this. I was in, what city was I in? Nashville, I believe. Yeah, I was in Nashville. I went to Nashville one time, and I flew to Nashville. And this hadn't been that long ago, a couple of months, I guess. And I first got a cab to take me somewhere.
Right.
I don't mind telling you, went through a little hassle. And this is not everywhere. A lot of places have fantastic cabs. But the one I got in, the gentleman didn't speak very good English, and I had to actually take his GPS and punch in where I was going myself.
Wow.
And we
You just
finally
had a
got
warm
on the
body
road,
in there.
finally got there. Well, on the way back, I went to, I was probably 20, 30 minutes away from where I was going. I was going to a smaller town near Nashville. And I going back, I got an Uber driver, and he knew exactly where I was going. Now, of course, he knew the neighborhoods and all of that really well, all the right directions to go. And it really was not expensive. So my guess is if she lived not far from work, she probably didn't spend a huge amount on an Uber driver to carry the book bags and all. But I do see your point.
You think a Uber driver would do anything less than $20 or $30?
That would
would
be
you
my
go-
guess. Now we do
Would you-
have a Uber driver that is part of our staff here,
Right, yeah.
on the CNC Auto Show. He's not here today, but we can ask. But from my understanding, they do do things for less than that. Mm-hmm.
Well, then they're living in an awful funny world. I don't look. I wouldn't get in my car and go 5 miles down the road for less than that. I mean, that's just, I don't know. That's just simply.
But you know, it is an
anyway,
option,
look,
though. And I'm just a scenario. Let's say that someone was a nurse. It was critical that she was there. She had her whole staff on hand. She couldn't leave, and boom, she was getting out and found out the kids' books was in the car.
Yeah.
And she had absolutely no choice.
I understand, Aaron, but you know those cases are so rare. I mean, kids generally when they're that young to forget and all that, they're excited to go to school. They're going to have their book bag. They're going to have everything they want. Well, for one thing, all their little things that they need throughout the day are in that book bag. They're not going to forget. That's going to be the rarest of the rare. But, guys, on another issue, you're talking about the tunnel.
Uh-huh.
You know, it would be great construction cost alone to build a tunnel versus a roadway is almost 1,000% more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We've got roads. We've got roads today in my area here alone. They are in such pitiful shape that if this winter, if we produce a hard freeze winter, I'm predicting we're going to have major problems with our roads.
Mm-hmm.
They're so fractured that once that water gets up underneath those fractures and freezes, it's going to pop all that asphalt up, and it's going to be this running around trying to catch up idea.
Yeah.
And none of our local politicians are talking about it, how pitiful our secondary roads are in.
Mm-hmm.
They got too many other battles to fight, I guess. I don't know what their problem is.
Yeah.
But, those are great dreams to have when you want to dream futuristic about tunnels and such. But for the rural areas, it's just, to me, it's just get down to basics and let's fix our roadways that we got.
Great comment. And Ron, if you stay on, our research department, it's worked on some new information having to do with the tunnels. So keep listening, and you'll hear more about that during this show.
Okay, and a tip. Look, I see more cars that their lights in their vehicles, the turning signals don't work, the brake signals don't work, the headlights, one or two headlights are out.
Mm-hmm.
It don't take but a minute to stop and get someone to help you go through and test all your lights to make sure they're working.
Absolutely.
Ron, as long as the AC and the radio works, they're not worried about it.
That's right. That's right. Y'all have a great weekend, guys, and make her safe.
Thank you, Ron. You too. Hey, John Ron, why don't we go to Sonny, get the information, and then we may have to put him on hold.
All right, we'll do just that.
Hey, Sonny, welcome to the CNC Auto Show, and what can we help you with today?
Well, I'm having a problem with my Dodge pickup,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems to have a problem going from drive to overdrive. It can't quite make up its mind where it wants to be.
What kind of vehicle is this? I know you said Dodge pickup, but what 2,500,
It's
1,500?
It's 2,500 diesel,
Okay. And what year?
2001.
Okay. And when you're going down the road, you're just doing what speed, and evidently you're in third gear and you're just trying to get it in overdrive, and it just is very confused. It doesn't know which way to go.
When you get up about 55, 56, it's trying to go into overdrive, and it'll try to go, and then it'll drop back and
Okay.
go up and back.
So it's in and out of what we would call lockup, where the converter locks up and is in final gear.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, it's kind of surprising that you mentioned that a 2501. This is going to sound crazy, but believe it or not, if the alternator has a bad diode in it, it can actually send signals out on the governor pressure sensor circuit, and it will actually almost manipulate the information coming from the transmission and make it think that it can do crazy things, but make it think it's going faster than it is, make it go slower than it is. That is one scenario. Put a lot of alternators on those trucks for that similar issue. The other thing is the check engine light on by any chance?
Is the truck what?
What's that? You there, Sonny?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you say if the check engine light was on?
No.
Okay. All right.
All my lights are good. I change the transmission fluid in it like every 100,000 miles. So.
Okay. Sonny, we're going to put you on hold, and we'll pick back up right after the break, and we'll touch base with you.
Okay.
All right.
It is time to take another break, and we will be back talking with Sonny about his 01 Dodge 2500, and we'll also be talking more about back to school as soon as we return with the CNC Auto Show. And if you're part of a carpool, it's up to you to remind your children that seat belts are a must, no matter who they're driving with. And not only are seat belts the law, they save thousands and thousands of lives a year. So make sure those kids wear those seat belts. If you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, give us a call, 706-863-5800, 8:05 to 10 Eastern Time, Saturday mornings. And again, 706-863-5800. And John Ryan, we were talking to Sonny.
Yes, we were.
And you were talking a little bit about how his is overdrive, things that can cause his overdrive to come in and out.
Right. Yes, Sonny, you're back on the air. The reason I asked about the check engine light is I'm surprised it's not on. A lot of times there'll be a code in there that'll be stored. It'll be P0700, which indicates that the car's engine computer recognizes there's an issue with the transmission. As I was telling you earlier, those vehicles were notorious for electrical noise in the harness. Like I mentioned to you, the alternator can create electrical noise and really almost just scatter or scramble the information coming from the transmission and causing those issues. Do you work on your own vehicles, or are you handy like that?
I do most of my maintenance,
Okay.
but like big stuff, I always send out.
Well, the reason I ask is because there's one test that you can do just to see if we're in the right area, and it'd be relatively simple. First step would be disconnecting the batteries. Well, I guess let me ask you that. How old are the batteries?
They're about a year and a half old.
Okay, so assuming that those are okay. First step would be disconnect the batteries and then actually disconnect both wires on the alternator. There's going to be a regulator plug that's actually like, a simple plug you'd push in and pull out, and then the little bit bigger gauge wire that goes to the back of the alternator. Now, the most important thing is make sure that big gauge wire doesn't touch anything. Put some electrical tape on it or some way to isolate it from hitting something metal and shorting out. And basically, of course, hook the batteries back up, crank the truck up, and go drive it and actually see if it does the same thing. If it does the same thing, again, it could be one of the governor pressure sensors or something like that in the transmission. But if it does not do it, of course, the alternator is not charging at this point, and it's not hooked to the vehicle. And, of course, that would indicate that it is a bad alternator. So that's kind of like the test that I would have for you, that you could do at home. Short of that, a technician would go kind of a totally different route. Of course, they put a scan tool in there, read all the data coming out of the transmission, and just in my experience with those trucks, when it does do that, you can see vehicle speed jumping all over the place. It'll go from 30 to 40 miles an hour because, again, that electrical noise is just really skewing the signals coming out of the transmission.
And Sonny, one real quick thing I'll mention that I've run into before, not necessarily on that particular truck, but on different vehicles, is that the thermostat is good. Is your temperature seem to be riding in somewhere around 195, 200, 210, around in there?
I had to replace the fan blade on it. The fan blade was cracked, and I put two electric fans on the front. Mm-hmm. And it hangs right there at 190 and does not move.
You're good then.
Yeah.
Usually if they're bad, the temperature would be down around 150, 155.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
That's about where the computer looks at to let it go into lockup. And if it rides in that area, it can make it go in and out. But if you're 190, you're good in that department.
Well, great. Well, I'll check this, and if I can't get it going, I'll send it to y'all.
Well, that sounds great. And Sonny, too, if you don't mind, just give us a call maybe on the next show. Let us know. And maybe even if you have more questions, we'll go through it that way.
All right. I appreciate it, Henry.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sonny. We love feedback.
Yeah.
Number to call, 706-863-5800, 805 to 10 Eastern Time. And, John Ryan, where are we going?
We're going over to Bill, Aaron.
Perfect. Hello, Bill. Welcome to the CNC Auto Show, and what can we help with today?
Hey, guys. I have a 2012 Mustang, six-cylinder premium. And all of a sudden, I started hearing a spark, and it was like a tapping noise, and it was consistent. So I took it to the Ford place. I don't know why I didn't do something like y'all, but I was close to them, so I took it to them. And they said it was it was a spark inside, I can't think of what you call them.
Possibly a plug tube?
No, it's something that there's a bunch of.
Maybe a pull-on plug or something like that? Or
no.
Exhaust manifold?
No, sir. It was it wasn't the ignition, but it's the things that you clean every now and then.
The fuel injectors?
Yes, an injector spark. That's what it was. Mm-hmm. They said it was an injector spark. Well, they worked on it probably almost all day, and they also changed my cold air return. Well, they kept messing with it and messing with it and messing with it, and finally the head mechanic, that's what he addressed himself as, came and asked me what kind of fuel I was using. And I said, well, I was using regular fuel. He suggested, and that's my question, because whatever they did, they fixed the spark. But he said I should be using high-test fuel in a six-cylinder automobile. And I said, well, if you say so, I'll do it. And that was really my question. And then also, he said that, to his knowledge, they had not had an injector spark at all.
Okay.
I'm wondering if, Bill, you may be talking about, they
Spark
mentioned
knock.
that you had spark knock on the car. What did it sound
No.
like? Was your symptoms like starting to go up a hill, say when the engine's warmed up?
A little bit of
go
No,
up a
sir,
slight
it was
incline?
constant.
Kind of like a
No,
keychain
sir, it was
rattling?
constant.
Hmm?
No, sir, it was a constant clicking. And he
Okay.
said it was an injector spark.
Well, I can tell you the reason he mentioned the higher grade fuel. In a lot of cases, like Aaron mentioned, as far as maybe the injectors aren't, well, I'm not going to say flowing right, but if a vehicle has spark knock, what happens a lot of times is it can be because of detonation, which on that particular vehicle, it could be something with the emission system, the EGR system. And the reason we would recommend trying a higher octane fuel is to see if the problem goes away. If it goes away, of course, then that means that we're in the right area, and then we'd do a lot more testing on the EGR system. So that may have been a diagnostic procedure he would like you to try. It's hard to say, of course.
Well, I have been using high-test fuel. Matter of fact, I just got it fueled up.
Okay.
And I haven't had the spark again.
Well, that
Not at
very
all.
well could be it. Now, Bill, we're about to go to a break. Did you want to hold so we can talk to you after?
No,
the break?
you answered the question.
All right. Well, that sounds
Okay.
great. Thanks for the call.
Thank you very
Bill.
much.
Yeah, and what the higher octane fuel does is it has a higher
Temperature rate,
before
burn
combustion.
rate. Yeah.
Okay, it is time to take a break. We will be right back after these messages. I want to mention just a couple of words. We were talking about the octane of fuel and when you recommend a higher octane fuel on a vehicle.
Yeah.
Now, of course, anytime an owner's manual recommends a higher octane, I always recommend it.
Yes.
Because that means it's more than likely a higher compression engine.
Right. You see it mostly on higher end cars, some imports.
Right.
A lot of European stuff.
You do, and some Cadillacs, Lexus, just
Corvettes,
vehicles
whole nine
like
yards,
that,
yeah.
higher compression. But what happens over a period of time? Things happen on vehicles that may call for an 87 octane that may not appear for years later. And one thing is carbon. Carbon buildup. It builds up on the top of the piston. And this can raise the compression ratio of even a car
Tightening
that
the
normally calls
clearances.
for 87. And then when you put the and then when you'll hear spark knock going up hills. Now this may not necessarily describe what the other gentleman was having,
Right.
but you hear spark knock going up a hill, and you can offset that by using a higher octane fuel. And again, the higher octane is merely the amount that you can compress that
Before
fuel
it
before it
ignites, yeah.
explodes or detonates. And so what you're doing is you're offsetting a problem when you have to use higher octane fuel.
Right.
Normally, an induction service will take care of it. A BG induction service will go in and clean the top of the piston, top of the valves, and make it where you can run your regular fuel again. Now, also, like you mentioned, EGR problems can cause that.
Right.
Exhaust gas recirculation. And other issues, but normally it has to do with carbon.
Right.
Okay. Ready to go
Okay.
to the calls?
Yeah, let's go over to Richard.
Hello, Richard, and welcome to the CNC Auto Show. What can we help you with?
Well, first of all, thoroughly enjoy your show. We have a 2005 Toyota Sienna, and one of the CV joint boots, a little bit of grease has escaped from the boot, and it's just a very small little tear in the boot. And I was wondering how urgent it is to replace those things. Can I wait a while? What's your recommendation on CV joint boots?
That's a great question, Richard. Do you have duct tape?
Of course.
No, that is a very good question because that's something we see periodically. It may be just the smallest little pinhole in a CV boot, and like you said, it may be, just a little amount of grease. But unfortunately, with the joint movement that those joints have, they operate, of course, all the way to the right, all the way to the left, and then of course with the suspension up and down too. Those little tears become big tears pretty quickly. Now, of course, it'd be a good thing just to monitor it. The biggest issue is the grease that comes out means obviously there's no grease in there. So depending on how fast it does, increase the cut in the boot, it may be something needs to be replaced soon. But it's nothing that will leave you on the side of the road or anything like that.
And plus, they give a lot of warnings. CV joints, a long time ago, now this is when CV joints were first coming out. You see the front wheel drive cars. If you had a boot busted, we'd say immediately, let's go ahead and get that repaired, because if you don't, then you'll need a whole CV shaft or you'll need to replace the joint. Well, now the shafts have come down in price so much till if you have a bad joint or even a bad boot, then we recommend going ahead and putting the whole shaft on anyway. So you might as well wait and get all the good out of that one. And like John Ryan mentioned, sometimes they may get worse within a month, or other times they may go a year without getting a lot worse. I believe I just recommend on each oil change, just say check the CV boots a little closer, or if you kind of monitor them yourself. And as long as it don't get any worse, keep driving. But if you start seeing a lot of grease to where it's actually slinging up against the body, then I'd go ahead and have it replace the whole shaft.
And Richard, that's what you want to avoid because, of course, obviously there's a disc brake system right behind there. And as that grease, 70 miles an hour, that CV axle is probably doing 200 miles an hour. And, that grease can really sling all over the place. And you definitely don't want that on your brake system.
Yeah. So just monitor it, and you'll be okay. But you'll get plenty of warning. You'll see the grease start getting a little worse, or you'll hear a little noise. Very seldom do we ever tow a car in because of a CV axle.
Right. If we do, the boot's been gone for 5 years.
They had earmuffs on while they were driving.
Okay, so we can drive 1,000-mile trip.
Yes.
Yeah. There's no reason to cancel that or anything like that.
No way that would that part of it will have an effect on that trip.
All right. Thank you very much for your advice, Joe.
Richard said now he can afford the trip.
Yeah, to have a good trip now.
All right, thanks.
Hey, I'm gonna mention, since you said that, I'm gonna mention real quick about very quickly a trip that I made earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of fun. One of the things I did was went to the Corvette Museum.
Oh, yeah, you told us about that.
I'll probably be posting some pictures on Facebook, but I did, of course, they had a lot of beautiful Corvettes there.
Yeah.
And then
did you rent a Mustang and pull up there with
it? And then they also had the cars that fell in the sinkhole.
Right.
And there was and then after we also went to Rock City and we went to Ruby Falls, things like that. But it was a lot of fun. Nice trip. Neat. We enjoyed it very much.
Very cool. All right, Aaron, we got a few more minutes before our break. Let's go get David.
Let's do it. Hello, David, and welcome to the CNC Auto Show. What can we help you with?
Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, I just had a couple pieces of information.
Mm-hmm.
I heard you talking about the octane of the fuel and everything, and my uncle, well, my grandfather and my dad's youngest brother, they both they lived up in just a little bit south of Philadelphia, and they both retired from Sun Oil, who make Sunoco products, gasoline,
right,
and other petroleum products. The last about 12 years of my uncle's career, he was the top operator, and he made gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one that was monitoring what came off of what they call the cracker. And it's got a catalyst, and that's how they're able to get more than 55 gallons of product out of a 55-gallon barrel of oil. Is because of the cracker and the systems that they use. But anyway, he had told me a couple of interesting things. The main one that he was telling me was that the government had forced us to go to ethanol. There was a chemical that they used to put in the gas that aided combustion.
Uh-huh.
And I can't remember, it was a 47-syllable word. I can't remember what it was called, but that was in gasoline for years. Even before they took the lead out, it was in there, and the EPA banned it. And the only thing that they have now that aids in combustion is the ethanol.
Mm-hmm.
And but one of the interesting things that he told me is that he said that he recommended burning 89 octane, the mid-grade. Of course, unless you're, like you were saying, your car called for it.
Yeah, exactly.
For the higher octane, it's just a waste of money. A lot of guys, especially I remember growing up, we all thought if you ran 91 or 93 octane, you got more horsepower.
David, that was in high school, wasn't it? Everybody did that.
And plus, it would make your
Everybody
engine
did
run
that,
cleaner and all this.
Exactly. Yeah. And but he said that what the reason why he recommends the 89 is that when it comes off the cracker, it's about an 88.8 to 88.9 octane.
Uh-huh.
And in order to get the octane down to 87, they have to add ingredients like naphtha, and there's 3 or 4 others that he mentioned. I can't remember the names of them either.
Uh-huh.
In order to drop the octane, and all of those ingredients don't burn real well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of your carbon, a lot of your the residue and stuff that you get in your engine comes from, because it stuff doesn't burn well. And
yeah, cool.
he said, especially in small engines, he can take he said you can put 89 octane. Well, he did it. He forgot one year and put 87 in his snowblower and left it in there and had to have the carburetor rebuilt. But he said normally if he runs 89, it doesn't have an issue. So
wow,
that's just
great.
something that I thought was pretty interesting, is that the 89 is actually what it comes off, and they have to add stuff that doesn't burn to drop the octane those 2 points.
That is interesting. And David, I'm going to do something when we come during the next segment. I'm going to get Dominic to do some research on what R plus M means. If anybody's ever seen that at the gas pump, did it say the octane rating using the R plus M method? And we'll hear a little bit more about that when we get back.
So anyway, I know you guys got to go to a break, but I just wanted to pass out. I've been using it for 5 or 6 years now, and I haven't had any issues. But if maybe Trump will, the EPA will loosen up some regs, and we can get the other combustion assist chemical to go back in the gas instead of ethanol.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Well, David, you're doing exactly
awesome.
what we love for you to do. Call in and share tips and ideas. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, give it a shot and see if you don't get a little bit better gas mileage, because it maybe it's in my head, I don't know, but it just seems like it to me, mileage quite often, and because you've got more of your volume burning, it just seems like it to me. But check that out and see what you're thinking. Maybe the other listeners try it.
We'll do it.
All right, thanks, David.
David, thank you. I think his phone was starting to fade out. Okay, we'll be right back after these messages.
Going over to Bill.
Hey, Bill, welcome to the CNC Auto Show. We appreciate your call, and what can we help you with?
You bet. I appreciate y'all. This is such a piddly question. I kind of embarrassed to ask it.
There are no piddly questions.
Bill, you're calling for a friend anyways, remember?
There you go. Some guy, yeah. I know some guy who drives a 2001 Toyota Camry with 207,000 miles on it. Mm-hmm. So far, so good. And I know it's not exactly the little brother to a Bradley fighting vehicle, but I have noticed during the last few weeks that have been kind of wet that I've had many reminders, I guess I should say, that whenever I run through a serious puddle, it knocks out the air conditioning for 15 to 20 minutes. And I assume that's just kind of too bad, so sad, deal with it. But is there any way to deal with that other than just don't hit puddles?
Wow, be honest with you, never really heard of that instance on that particular car. Some vehicles have like splash shields that can be missing.
I was trying to remember the car that happened on. Cadillacs, I believe it was. Certain model Cadillacs would do that.
Well, Town and Country's actually had a whole.
I'm sorry, that was a Town and Country. Yeah,
they
would do that.
Country's had a whole redesign of the splash shield, but normally that's for maybe a minute or so. So let me ask you this: does the AC light flash when this happens?
Yes, sir, it does. And I don't really care about the AC, but obviously if you lose your AC, you also lose the ability to defrost. So I find myself, reaching for a towel.
Right,
while
yeah,
I'm going
of
down the
course.
road, which is kind of rough.
Bill, the crazy thing is, the reason I ask if the AC light is flashing is that the problem that scenario is actually has nothing to do with weather, believe it or not. It might have to do with maybe the dampness or the humidity, and like you said, puddles and stuff like that really wouldn't affect this as much. When that vehicle, it has a feedback system to determine whether or not the compressor is on or off. The car's smart enough to know if it's on or off, and when it does not see the compressor engaged and the pressures change in the AC system, it flashes that light just like basically like a check engine light. It sees something it doesn't agree with, lets you know. That vehicle is very, very common for that problem, and the relay is actually the fault. The relay is, of course, what does the heavy-duty power work with little bitty wires, basically. So when the relay goes bad, it doesn't see any clutch movement, it doesn't see any pressure increase or anything like that. So the control head flashes the light and, of course, basically tells the consumer or the driver that, hey, there's a problem with this system, get it checked out. And that was just free diagnostics, basically. But yeah, it's a very simple, easy fix. I mean, I'm just throwing a number out. The relay's under $30. You can find it, of course, all Napa stores. Many places have it, and it's a easy thing for anybody to do. It's labeled MAGCLT, which is magnetic clutch, up under the fuse panel in the, of course, under the engine or under the hood, and that typically takes care of that problem. So, with that being said, that sounds like, it's a easy fix for your problem.
MAGCLT, that'll work.
CLT,
all right.
yeah.
Thank
clutch.
y'all very much.
Yep.
Bill, we
right,
appreciate the call.
But annoying. You bet. Thank y'all.
All right, thanks.
Number to call, 706-863-5800, 8:05 to 10 Eastern Time, and that's Saturday mornings. And where we're going, John Ryan?
How we're going to go over to Brett.
Hey, Brett, welcome to the show, and what can we help you with?
Hey, good morning. I'll be real quick with this. Driving along and noticed I smelled some antifreeze, and then I noticed my reservoir tank was low and empty, and then it took me a while. Steam started coming out through the defroster vents, and then water leaking inside the car. So is that the heater core? And
yeah, unfortunately, it does sound like it on that one.
Yeah, Brett, you're in trouble when the technician goes, ooh.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, if you're seeing the steam inside the car, now the main thing is you want to make sure of is that's on the floor does have a little bit of a sticky feel.
Well, oily feel.
Or an oily feel, yeah. Now, if you feel it and it looks like just plain clear water, then always a chance that your evaporator core may be stopped up, evaporator drain, and you're getting water there and having a different problem under the hood, like an antifreeze leak creating some steam out there.
Yeah.
But if it does have that oily feel and you are seeing steam on the dash, it does sound like you have a heater core. Well, not much doubt. There's very few other things that can do that.
Right.
Other than the heater core.
I don't know if that would cause it to happen.
What was that?
The AC compressor is broken, so.
Okay, if the AC compressor's not working, then there's nothing else that can cause it other than the heater core.
Brett, is this just a vehicle you use? Is this something you really want AC and heat in? I know that sounds crazy to ask, but I have a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to.
Well, the reason I asked is if it's something that you need to temporarily repair to where you can still drive and, of course, keep cooling in it. It's not necessarily advised. This isn't a long-term fix, but it's something that may get you down the road, until, time is right and you can repair it. But, of course, you could bypass that particular heater core. Of course, there's two hoses. One goes in the, heater core and one comes out of the heater core. Napa has elbows, little coolant fittings that would loop those two hoses to where you could, again, drive it temporarily. I don't recommend doing it long term simply because your heater core is also a heat exchanger. It gets some of the heat out of the cooling system. So, I don't know that you'd notice an increase in coolant temperature, as far as daily driving, but it definitely will run just a slight bit warmer. So that is one option that you could do.
Okay. Is it a pain in the neck to change the core?
To change it, it is quite involved. It's
dash
not
wants to come out of that
right.
one, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I was just trying to think of that 92. That might actually be a firewall access one. I've got it in my mind. I've seen it. I know where the hoses are, but I can't honestly. That
a 92 Cadillac DeVille on putting in a heater core. We'll get that information, and then we'll try our very best to mention that again after the right after our next caller.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Brett.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brett. Where we're going, John Ryan?
Let's go over to Richard.
Okay, Richard. Welcome to the CNC Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah. Hey, I got the 96 Saturn, and it don't look like much, but you folks keep it running for me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, I'm wanting to share something with you folks, too.
Uh-huh.
We went to the beach last Sunday, and I got sunburned bad. Part of the family did, too. And just to pass it on to the ones that like the beach, I'm not too fond of it right now. I couldn't even go out of the house until yesterday. I had to go see the doctor and spend half a day with him. But they passed some information on to me about sunscreen.
Yes.
They said it was over a year old. That chances are it's not effective.
Oh goodness.
And so for all you
that reminds me to keep
lovers,
your car waxed because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. But that is important, and a lot of people think that because they're in their car, it's not affecting them. But actually, a lot of people ride around with their arm hanging out the window. Of course, I've started driving a convertible all the time, so real important.
Yeah.
Hey, Richard, we're gonna go ahead and hang up real quick. I had something I wanted to mention right at the end of the show. We appreciate the call very much. This is sort of a sad part of the show. We had a listener who was very, very loyal to the show. He'd listen to the show on a regular basis. He'd let us know that he never misses a show. His name's Mervyn John. He is a true friend of the CNC Auto Show. He was involved in a terrible accident earlier this week. He died in the accident. And we miss Merv very much.
That's right.
And him mentioning to us that he enjoyed the show all the time.
He always gave us feedback on it.
Yeah, we'll miss you, Merv.
Yep.
And prayers goes to his family and friends, which includes very much Sean Ryan. That's this week's CNC Auto Show.